What's up, everyone? Welcome to the show. We're your hosts, Grant Cohn, Jack Hammer, Sports Illustrated, Santa Rosa Press Democrat. Here to talk positivity and concern in equal measure today for the team, for the offense, for the defense, for Trey Lance. We're also going to talk Hall of Famers and running backs because it seems like, first of all, there's no freaking agreed upon criteria about what makes a Hall of Famer, and it seems like it's different position by positions what they look for. So we're going to try to decode that. But first, I want to start with something that Jack and I were talking about a few weeks ago. We had a discussion. I think I was in Monterey that weekend. We were talking about why really the Panthers are the most likely trade partner for Jimmy Garoppolo. Matt Mayoka came out today and said it's a long shot for anyone to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm starting to side with Matt on this one. I think that even the Panthers are going to be a long shot unless the Niners can do something quickly. Because I think the Panthers probably won't trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the Panthers have a connection with Kenny Pickett. I don't know. Some people don't like him because he has hands that are like smaller than mine, and mine are really small. His, I think, actually probably are a little bit bigger, but still in the small range. This is the only reason I couldn't be an NFL quarterback is my hands. I checked every other box. Anyway, this isn't about me. Jack hasn't talked yet. I'm going to let Jack talk for a very long time, I promise. What I want to say is Matt Rule, head coach of the Panthers, was the head coach at Temple, recruited Kenny Pickett. Then Rule went to Baylor. Kenny Pickett transferred his commitment to Pitt, went on to have a good career. Seems like Matt Rule was like vindicated in recruiting him. And if he liked him then, I'm thinking he's going to like him now. Doesn't mean Kenny Pickett will be available, but what do you think, Jack?
I think my feeling on this is that the Rule, I think, needs to have a winning season. I don't think that he can go out here and have another, because he has not been good in his first 2 years. They've only won 5 games in each of his first 2. So I feel like they need to go out and win some games. So even if they do go with a guy like Pickett or one of these other rookies, for me, it would make sense for them to make a trade for Garoppolo and expect him to be the guy for a year or two, just kind of like an Alex Smith when he was with the Chiefs, for example. Have him get in there for a year or two, kind of set the table for whichever one of these young quarterbacks comes along to put them in a better position when they're ready. That's kind of the reason why I felt like a trade for Garoppolo to Carolina made sense. That's my reasoning for it. I know will they go that direction? Who knows?
No, I see what you're saying. It's like, even if they do draft, let's say they do draft Kenny Pickett, then the question is, who do you want to be your bridge quarterback? Sam Darnold, who's a freaking dumpster fire, or Jimmy Garoppolo, who I don't think is good, and I think probably is a lot like Sam Darnold, but Sam Darnold is a known loser. Jimmy Garoppolo has won a lot of games. If you think he's a loser in a different situation, that's a projection. So I could see like a desperate coach looking at that win-loss percentage and saying, you know what, just save my job for 1 year. And then I'll go to Kenny Pickett the next year. That would require the Panthers spending a first-round pick on a quarterback this year and a conditional day 2 pick next year. I mean, the whole idea is to take advantage of a desperate coach, right? Seems like Matt Rule fits that.
Yeah, it does. It does seem like he fits that. And the other thing too is I just don't know if this, they're all in on quarterbacks. They're showing that they're all in. They have, what is it? I think every quarterback that's in the top of the draft this year is coming in this week for a visit with them. So they're not holding back the fact that they're looking at quarterbacks. So could it be a big smokescreen because they're going to go in a different direction than that, or and they're trying to keep somebody else available for themselves to grab? That could be another thing there as well.
The biggest monkey wrench in this problem is like, if you want Jimmy Garoppolo to come and save your job, he can't throw. He can't really participate in the off-season program until training camp. That complicates things because now you're thinking like, first of all, you miss the spring portion. That's not great. And second of all, is no guarantee he's going to be ready when they say. No idea, although you'd think so. Still, like, there's no guarantee he stays your job.
No, right. No, there's not. The only thing with Carolina, what I like about them is that their defense, they have a strong defense, and if Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy, he matches up well with what Garoppolo does in terms of the underneath run after the catch kind of stuff. But I understand it might be a little bit of a long shot as far as I think. Yeah.
Is it that a little real side tangent? Is it pretty much Carolina or nothing at this point? I know other people point to Seattle. That just kind of makes me. It's like,
yeah. Seattle doesn't really make sense for the 49ers to make a move within the division. The New York Giants is a team that I know I saw Barry Baller throw up in the comment section that I've seen some people talk about recently just in Twitter conversations that might make sense. Their quarterback's injured as well. So did they decide that they want to go with Jimmy Garoppolo and Tyrod Taylor, or do they want to stick with Jones for another year?
Okay. Well, look, this is neither here nor there, but my big concern with this is that the Niners, this is how it's going to play out. The Niners are going to take this to the very end. They're going to say Trey Lance wins the quarterback competition. Jimmy, we want to cut your salary drastically. You're the backup quarterback. We're not going to pay you $27 million to be the backup. We'll pay you more than anyone else can pay you on the market, but it's going to be a big pay cut. And Jimmy says, I forgot to tell you, but I'm having surgery on my thumb or whatever, something. I heard it. I was trying really hard to win this quarterback competition, but I did something, and now I need to get surgery, and now my contract's guaranteed. Sorry. Plus, I'm going on IR. That's how I feel. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, if he gets into training camp with them, I think they're gonna be stuck with him.
Yep.
If they actually get into camp and they let him get into camp and start to work, I think they will be stuck with him. Not necessarily because of that, but I just think that once they get to that point, I just think that's kind of them raising the white flag that they haven't been able to move on from him, and they're going to just stick with him in some way.
Yeah. And then if you stick with him, I mean, does he become the $27 million backup? Does he galvanize the locker room on his side? I mean, I don't know. Funny things happen in life, and I think we're going to see. So I think we'll find out. CT Law says, so let's say Jimmy comes back, and let's say they have a $27 million backup quarterback, which is never going to happen. But let's say, how many games do you allow Trey to lose before calling in Jimmy serious? That's a great question, right? Because Jimmy got hurt, came back, and the Niners started 2-4. Lance lost one of those games as well. Could Lance do the same thing with Jimmy on the bench? Depends how Lance is playing.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, for me, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you need to stick with a guy, which is kind of what he did last year, and he'd have to know that there's going to be some. That you could hear him. You can basically hear what he's going to say, right? You could, we knew there was going to be some growing pains. We knew that there was going to be. It wasn't going to be smooth, but we believe in this guy, and that's what it should be.
The problem is not what Kyle would say, but it would be like if there are whispers from the locker room, because for the first time in 2 years, the locker room is going to be open, and a player can go to a reporter after a game, real discreetly. Happens all the time, and just say, "Hey, what the fuck?" Write that, but don't attribute it to me. You know what I mean? Like those things can get out, and I mean, Jimmy can talk. You never. I mean, who knows? So anyway, it'd be very interesting what happens.
It's true because of it's not going to be like it's been the last 2 years, right? They're not going to be able to really drive the narrative like they were the last couple of years because the media will be in the room and be able to chat with whoever they feel like, whoever's in the room.
Double B Studio says, I've said since the minute the Niners lost the NFC Championship, Niners will never trade Jimmy. I sent you a super chat saying that. I was called crazy. Sorry, Double B Studio. It's a phenomenon. It's really quite amazing that the Niners won't give. But I don't know. I mean, like, what makes Jimmy different than all other quarterbacks? I mean, everyone says that he's off the charts in terms of leadership, likability, professionalism. And no one really says anything nice about the way he plays. Like, I've never heard of a quarterback who can get by on intangibles 100%.
Yeah, no, it's funny because that's exactly what happened yesterday, right? With the receiver.
Sanders.
Yeah, with Sanders came out and said it.
I've heard this before. Like, no one's questioning this about Jimmy, but like, these are qualities a coach could have, a backup quarterback could have. I mean, what about him makes him a good starter? And everyone's like, well, I guess we'll see. I mean, if he leaves and the Niners tank and he has a good career, then that'll be the answer.
He's just a weird case because there's a lot of bad things when you watch him play. There's plenty of bad there, and then there's the good, and it just kind of balances each other out. It's crazy how they win so much with him compared to without him.
I know. It's crazy.
It is. It just really is. And the way the perception
similar because Tebow won. I mean, and he did it his way, and at the same time, like it didn't really matter like what the process was. He got there at the end, but the difference with Tebow was he couldn't throw a football. He didn't play the position the right way. He was like a chicken with his head cut off. He was a run first guy. Jimmy looks the part. He plays the position the right way. And that goes so far with, I think, a lot of people. Also, the fact that he has pedigree. I mean, not just forget how he looks. That's really neither here nor there. He plays the position from the pocket, and he has the New England pedigree. He talks like Tom Brady. He apparently comports himself in meetings like Tom Brady. He's not Tom Brady. Doesn't play like Tom Brady, but he does. He tries his damnedest.
Yeah, he tries.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Double B once again says teams are looking at Jimmy Garoppolo playoff resume and concluding we don't have a team that can carry this leader. Teams rather have quarterbacks with no playoff experience. I mean, I don't think we have to go like down the list of reasons the Niners can't trade Jimmy. It's a very, very long list. The Niners know it. That's why if the Niners like Jimmy as much as they say they like Jimmy, they wouldn't have traded for Trey Lance. That wasn't a small trade. That wasn't like a trade up from 27 to 17. That was a Mondo trade and it wasn't. Apparently, it wasn't because they were 100% sold on Lance, right?
The way, if you believe all the stories and everything that's coming around, I think they believe more in Lance than people are saying. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out in 4 months. We're going to find out about 4 months.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words. Please show us 49ers. Double B Studio says also thanks for those short Jimmy updates. Got my hopes up. Thanks for the hard work, QC. Your job is not easy, my friend. Sub Jack. Yeah, I know it's silly, but at the same time, like the fact that he is still every day that he's still on the team, like kind of blows my mind. And we're all kind of habituated to it now. But like, if I told you last year, not only is Jimmy Garoppolo going to make it through the season, but he's going to be on the team next offseason too. I think we might have been a little skeptical. Really?
No,
how? Did they win the Super Bowl? No. Did they go to the Super Bowl? No. Okay. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I'll watch. Yep. CT Law says, Grant, the perfect storm is set up for Jimmy. Surgery season starts and Trey Lance gets the call. Jimmy sits and Lynch says Jimmy's still working through to get sharp. No one is going to think Lance took his job. And then if Lance struggles, Jimmy Garoppolo comes in as the savior and makes $250 million totally guaranteed on the free agent market next year. He gets the last laugh. No?
That would be quite a story, quite a season to write about.
Matty Mayoko said today, his name is Matty, by the way, not Matthew. He's named after Matty Alou, the famous former Giant. That's a Matt Mayoko fact. Matty Mayoko. He said, he argued that Jimmy should want to be a backup here. If he has to be a backup anywhere, he should want to be a backup here. Because, well, he didn't really go into the full list of reasons, but I could give a lot of reasons why that makes sense to me. Like, first of all, Trey Lance got hurt twice last year. There's no guarantee that he'll stay healthy all season. There's no guarantee that he'll be good, even though I think he will be. And if Jimmy Garoppolo does get a chance to come back and play, he knows the system. He's got George Kittle. He's got Deebo Samuel. He's got Elijah Mitchell. I mean, he knows he can have he knows he can win and have good stats here. I mean, that's something.
Yeah, it's a good spot for him. I think that
humiliating, but it's still a good spot.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this before because if you look at like what Mitchell Trubisky did, he went somewhere and he rehabilitated himself for a year as far as his image across the league, and he found a spot in Pittsburgh as a result. He probably wouldn't have got that deal from anybody last year, but he did this year. Garoppolo could do the same. I don't know if it's necessarily staying here in San Francisco and doing it, or if he needs to just cut bait and go somewhere else.
Okay, let's move on. That's enough Jimmy Garoppolo for a day. That was 15 minutes.
Plenty.
Okay. What is the biggest area of concern on offense from this offseason? That's sort of new circa this offseason.
Mm-hmm. I think it's easy to point to the offensive line as the area of to question, right? Because of the changes at guard and potentially right tackle. I think that's the easy one.
Look at my notes. You know I'm going to go there. Okay, well, you go ahead.
No, but I was going to know, and I think that's one. And I think that's the one that everybody has. If I cheat on this question a little bit, I would say that let's change. Look at this a different way. The area of concern that I would have for this offense right now is, can Kyle Shanahan figure out a way to be successful on 3rd and 4th down with Trey Lance? Because they weren't last year. They were awful last year in his 2 starts.
Oh
What's that?
yeah,
Well, Trey
okay.
Lance.
Sure.
If you go back and you look at the numbers in Trey Lance's 2 starts against Arizona and Houston, they were 8 of 24 on third down, 1 of 7 on fourth down. So that's an area of concern for that offense moving forward. Just something different. I'll leave the offensive line to you.
Oh, okay. So third down offense is an area of concern because of Trey Lance. That's interesting. Well,
I don't. Real
okay.
quick, what I will say real quick is I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily Trey Lance's fault. I think that's why I said, can Kyle Shanahan figure it out? Because I think it's really Kyle Shanahan's fault because of the way that he's trying to utilize Trey Lance in those roles.
Got it. Can they figure it out together?
Yes.
Because even with Jimmy Garoppolo, I mean, they were 14th on third down conversion percentage last. So Kyle needs to figure it out one way or another. Because it seems like, I mean, a lot of people, I read a lot on Twitter, the Niners have the best group of weapons in football, right? The best trio. So they should be top 5 on third down if their quarterback is talented and the offense is competent. And I feel like it is. They should, but it is a concern from the evidence out there. It's a good point. Let me go with the offensive line.
Sure.
Look, I made fun of Tom Compton a lot. He surprised me with his run blocking. He was awful in pass protection. Awful. And like, it's tough to get offensive line stats. They're kind of different no matter where you go. But I like going Assist Data Hub because they give away stats for free, which makes them seem kind of honest to me. They're not trying to like make you pay before you see a stat, which is kind of weird. So I like them. And I just kind of use them as a baseline. They had Tom Compton giving up 11 sacks last year. And he even played the whole season. So, okay. The replacement probably could be no worse in pass protection than Tom Compton, who the Niners won a lot with. I don't know if they can be as good in run blocking, but whatever. I'm sure they've won a lot of games with suspect right tackle play. They've had Laken Tomlinson the whole way, though. He doesn't miss time, and although he's a bit overrated and he's not great, he's good. And they're not upgrading from Laken Tomlinson. They've got an unknown probably competing against an unknown. Like it'll probably be Aaron Banks and Jalen Moore. One of them may emerge. I don't think either one will be as good as Laken. And let's just talk. I mean, it's a run-first team. Laken's run blocking was important, but in pass protection, he gave up 2 sacks last year, according to Assist Data Hub. Brunson give up 6. You know, if Banks is a disaster and he's over here giving up 10, 11, like Compton, well, now you got a problem no matter who the quarterback is. Mm-hmm. So now you got 2020 essentially again, where not having that center really, really ruined things for the 49ers. Most of the year. Is Laken Tomlinson's departure from the run game and the pass game going to be that? I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah, no, we'll see. I think here's the thing. You know, I've never been as high on Laken Tomlinson as some other folks. I think I know, like last year,
Me too.
Season.
Me too.
I think I wrote an article about him being the weak link on the 49ers offensive line, actually.
I wouldn't go.
But if you go back and you look at Laken Tomlinson, he's the guy that missed the block that got Jimmy Garoppolo injured against the Jets. He's the guy that missed the block that got Jimmy Garoppolo injured against the Cowboys, which is why he's still a 49er. So if you want to blame anybody for Jimmy Garoppolo still being a 49er, I guess we blame it on Laken Tomlinson.
Okay. Okay. That being said, he's still better than Daniel Brunskill. And he's still better than whoever's going to replace him. And I'm with you. Like he's definitely overrated. I still think he's a net positive on your offensive line. And I'm all for him upgrading. Maybe the Niners will draft an offensive lineman who will slide in. But barring that, I'm a little concerned about the drop-off at that one position. I think what Kyle would say is it's just guard. Don't worry about it. Okay. So maybe just not having your center in 2020 really mess things up. I guess guard isn't as important. You get more help. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. No, but then just to debate that with you really quick. When you look at the offensive line numbers for 20, okay. You got to take a step back because if you look at the quarterback hit numbers, they don't compare. They had a lot more quarterback hits. But if you look at the sack totals, the sack percentage was just slightly higher in 2020 than it was 2020.
Oh, yeah. In 2020, I remember it being the quarterback hits. Like they just got –
yeah. The quarterback hits.
A lot of getting hit as they threw.
Yeah, the quarterback hits was quite a bit bigger. I think they were like 73 or something like that, or 80. I think they finished with 83. Last year they were around 44.
They were very high in the league. In that particular,
I don't have it in front of me right now, but I was looking at it this morning because I was just trying to look. I was looking at a bunch of quarterback stuff.
Yeah. So the quarterback hits, they take it all.
Yeah, they do.
I remember because I was so sympathetic for Nick Mullins. I kept counting. I was like, how does he keep getting up? It's because I think Jimmy took 12 and then he was down. Mullins kept getting up. I guess when you made like $800,000 in the league, it's like I gotta keep playing, bud. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, you'd hope that Trey Lance would be able to avoid some of those with his movement.
Yes, I would think so. Absolutely. CT Law says you do realize Trey played like a nanosecond and already had a knee sprain and a finger fracture. Be careful what you wish for. I think Lance is soft. Kyle is a player destroyer, runs him into the ground. Well, I guess we'll find out. Like you said, he's played a nanosecond. He didn't look soft the way he throws his body around. Is he made of glass the way Carson Wentz and Jimmy Garoppolo are? I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to call him glass. He's a pretty.
I wouldn't call him that yet.
No, he's a pretty solid guy, and then when he's running the ball, for the most part, he does a good job. I was rewatching his game against Arizona, for the most part, he does a good job of getting down and avoiding contact. There was a couple of times though where he just should have gone down and he didn't.
Okay, give me the biggest area of positivity on offense from this offseason.
I think the biggest area for positivity is everybody's returning. They're returning almost all of their. I think they lost 31 yards in their rushing game and only like 264 in the passing game. So all of the main guys are returning. They lose one touchdown off of the offense from last year. Their tight end room is the same. The wide receivers, they need to add a couple of pieces, but their three main guys are there. And the running back room is the same as what it was last year for the majority of the season. And then I think the biggest positivity would be Trey Lance taking over and what he can bring to the offense.
Yeah, I mean, they are probably going to have 2/5 of their offensive line be new starters, unless McGlinchey makes a real quick comeback. I don't see that happening. So what do you think? It's going to be like School at right tackle or Colton McKivitz and then Jalen Moore? Anyway,
my guess would be that it's going to be Moore. I think Moore is going to win that job at right tackle.
More McKivitz.
I think it'll be
Moore and Banks.
If I was laying it out, it's going to be Williams, Banks, Mack, Brunskill, and Moore is who the starting five would be. That's
okay. So other than that, yeah, they do have everyone coming back. My biggest area of positivity on offense, and I wrote these down before discussing with you. It's funny. You said third down is the biggest area of concern for you on the offense. I wrote that as the biggest area of positivity. And I hear what you're saying. The numbers weren't good. I just feel like, as you pointed out, it's not just a Lance issue. It's a Lance, Kyle. It's a team issue. And as we saw Kyle figure out on first and second down with Lance, like how to use them, they should be able to figure it on third down too, because at least theoretically, you can use more of the field. You don't have to just force the ball to Kittle or Debo between. You can actually throw the ball to the sidelines. I know Jimmy would too, but really, if it was more than 6 yards down the field, the ball wasn't going to the sidelines. You can actually do 12-yard outs to Jennings and you can really take advantage of those big, long-armed receivers. So there's that. And then I would think that Trey Lance is going to scramble for 30 first downs next year. I don't know. Maybe not 30, 20. No. I mean, one a game, one or two. Mm-hmm. So that's good. And then just those things right there should help, as long as the pass protection isn't just awful.
Yeah, and I'm with you. The point that I was making before really didn't even have anything to do with Lance. It's more about Shanahan. But if they just play their offense the way they normally do and let him make plays off of it with his legs, which is what he wants to do, that's when he's going to be at his best. Stop trying to play this 11-on-11 football kind of thing that you're trying to do, because I understand that Trey Lance is really fast, but he doesn't play fast. I haven't seen him play fast in the NFL yet.
Fair.
I
haven't seen him pull away from anyone.
No, I mean, I've seen him do it when he's scrambling, but I haven't seen him do it on designed runs. When he's doing the designed runs, like if you go back to the Houston game,
he's stuck in third gear.
Yeah, Justin Reed's running him down to the sideline and beating him to the corner and stuff like that. So for me, I just want to see Trey Lance play quarterback, get rid of the running back stuff that you're doing with him, because I think he'd be so much better.
Yeah, when I saw Justin Fields in person, I saw that guy is really quick and explosive. No one can catch him. He's got the short area quickness of Kyler Murray. Trey Lance is bigger than Justin Fields, and he's more like a traditional quarterback who's very mobile. than a guy you would use like Justin Fields, in my opinion. Like if you wanted to have a guy in a spread offense running the zone read a bunch, just get Justin Fields. He's better at that.
Yep.
Trey Lance is a guy who like he's really quick in his drop from center, and like little things like that. He's really quick on like a bootleg out of the pocket. But is he necessarily going to outrun a safety on a zone read? I don't know about that. He might run him over, although he didn't do that much last year either. So maybe just use him as a quarterback.
Yeah, that's it. Just use him as a quarterback because I think he's so much better.
Yeah, and I think Kyle, he got so good at knowing what he can and can't do with Trey Lance, with Jimmy Garoppolo, mostly slants and digs all freaking day for Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, we know that. Yeah. Well, I think we're going to see some of that with Trey Lance, but we're going to see a lot more like the outs from the slot. Kyle used to call that a lot too, and I mean, Jawan Jennings is kind of perfect for that. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go defense. What is the biggest area of concern, new area of concern on the defense from this offseason?
Yeah, I think this one's a tough one because I want to say the secondary, but I really like what they did at corner. So it's kind of what are they going to do at nickel and what are they going to do at safety? Those are the question marks that I have. I think they're going to be really good along the defensive line and at linebacker, but it's that safety position that worries me. They don't have one right now that's coming back. Although they were 2-1 last year with Talanoa Hufanga, so maybe he's better than I think. But beyond that I think safety is probably one of my biggest concerns there would be safety. And at nickel, they really don't have anybody right now. They have a bunch of guys that they've been able to do okay with, but they don't have anybody that really is right now when you just look at the roster, the site is going to be the nickel.
Yeah. The safety position, what concerns me about that is that, John Lynch is a Hall of Fame safety. The Hall of Fame safeties all know each other. They go to functions and stuff. He's probably really good friends with Troy Polamalu, who's really close with Talanoa Hufanga. And you probably have Troy Polamalu just gassing him up to John Lynch constantly. He's so good. I've been working out with him. He's your guy for the future. And Lynch is like, I trust him, man. Troy wouldn't lie to me. Troy knows. I don't know. You should probably take a safety pretty high in the draft. But I just like big picture for this defense is just run defense in general. DJ Jones is a big loss. Now, Arden Key, he's a big loss too. That's a pass rusher. DJ Jones was there. We would watch. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I thought he was the best interior run defender on the team last year. Tougher to move with a double team than Eric Armstead. Like a freaking boulder. That's the way I saw him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I do think that there likely will be a little bit of a drop off on the run defense because that's
not just him either. It's Tart and K1. Like those guys are good in run defense too. That's three guys.
Yeah, I would lean more towards DJ Jones being the reason for it than the safety although I know they're responsible for run, filling the holes is important. But DJ Jones is just a guy that doesn't get moved, and that's partly why they don't have anybody on their roster.
Right? Yeah.
What's that? They don't have anybody on their roster that can get the tackles for loss from that position like he does. I think they'll be okay if Javon Kinlaw is as healthy as he says he is. I think they'll be okay there, but I still think there's going to be a little bit of a drop off in run defense.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of people say it's a passing league. I don't think the Rams care that much, although they did just sign Bobby Wagner, probably just because they got to stop the Niners at some point. But yeah, run defense. Got a couple of donations. Gabriel says, people so hard on Trey. Poor kid had 2 starts and his second was just as good as any rookie all year. He settled in versus Texans in the second half. I've seen him do that in the preseason, regular season now. That's kind of how I feel about him. Like, it was 2 starts. He settled in the second start. We really need to see more. But I thought it was kind of encouraging for a rookie if you look at what he did, which was this much.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I see a lot of stuff going around about him, and I don't know why anybody would be as hard as they are on him just based off of what we saw in week 17. I thought he played really well in that game. Even when you go back to week 5, even though it wasn't just Trey Lance, the whole offense was out of sync in that game.
Yeah, I mean, that was his first start. Kyle Shanahan had no idea how he wanted to use him. I'm not sure. Maybe that was a joke or just an experiment. I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to figure out what not to do. And I think he did. He learned this is exactly what not to do. And then the next game, he did it totally differently. I don't know. That's my best guess. Yeah. Gabriel has another one. He says, also, Kyle realized he has a quarterback that will let it fly, and he adjusted after 1.5 games. That's why you see all the new coaches, because he's building a new offense. Hey, man, Gabriel's got a good line of – I mean, I could see that. It seems like Kyle was trying to get Trey Lance to prove himself running Jimmy's offense. Hit the slant. Show me you can hit the slant. And once he finally did at the end of the first half of the Texans game, Kyle's like, all right, now we're going to do play action. And it worked. So I don't know. Maybe he had to earn Kyle's trust first.
Yeah, I think. Well, yeah, we saw them finally hit a couple of plays together, and you saw there be some cohesion between those two guys, and that, like we talked about at the beginning, that's really what this comes down to. Is Kyle needs to know that they need to see the field together. So what Kyle needs to feel that when he calls a play, that Trey's going to kind of see it and run it the way that he thinks, and Trey Lance has to kind of see it the way that Shanahan's calling it. They need to work together and get on the same page.
I'd like Kyle to go back and check out his film from the late 2000s when he was in Houston, the stuff he used to do with Andre Johnson and Matt Schaub, the way he used to get slow-ass Matt Schaub way out of the pocket on bootlegs all by himself and just get these like wide open, uncontested, explosive plays down the field to Andre Johnson. Like, time to bring it back. And he did that a lot with Matt Ryan too. Like, Kyle at his best is like an unstoppable play action machine. And the fact that he could do as much as he did with Jimmy Garoppolo, who pretty much like nixed play action from the playbook, is a testament to Kyle. But I think he's coming back, and I think that bodes well. I mean, it looked good in the second half of the Texas game.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
Michael says Noah Ellis, Marquand McCall, nose tackle that can replace DJ. All right. You heard it here first from Michael Duran. Take note. All right, more. Give me the biggest area of positivity on defense, new area of positivity from this offseason.
I think they're going to be better. I think I'm looking forward to see what they can do from the interior on their pass rush. I think they're going to be better there. I think that defensive front as a whole is going to be really good. I know they lose Jones and they lose Contavious, Street and Key. Those are the three losses. The guys that they've brought in, where they're replacing them with, though, I think are going to be better at rushing the passer than what they're losing. Key was a guy who had 3 sacks in 3 years before the 49ers got a hold of him.
True.
And so I think Charles Omenihu was a guy who Omenihu was better than that when he was basically playing that interior pass rush role with Houston. So I think that he can step in, especially playing next to Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead. That'll help him out when he does that. I think he'll be doing that full time this year. So I just feel like that interior of the defensive line and the defensive line in general is going to make things easier for that secondary.
Yeah. It's almost like they brought in Charles Omenihu knowing that Arden Key was going to get paid and they weren't going to be the ones to pay him. That's very interesting. He looked good as an edge rusher in that second half of the playoff game against Dallas. Sack and a half. He looked explosive. Yeah. So probably be a handful for guard. I didn't even know that he had that experience in Houston. Just shows how much homework I do. Good to know. Charles Omenihu. He produced in the playoffs. Arden Key did not. Arden Key was nowhere in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, he had a sack and a half. Jordan Willis is a guy who really came on in the playoffs towards the end of the year after missing so much time at the beginning. So their depth is really good. They already had a good starting group. I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with Eric Armstead. Are they going to bump Eric Armstead to have him do this inside-outside thing again, or are they just going to keep him the defensive? I agree. I think he's way better if they just lined him up as a defensive tackle. He's so much better there than trying to set the edge. It'd be much better for him.
I don't think they can afford to move him out of defensive tackle because they lost DJ Jones. I mean, if he doesn't start at defensive tackle, then who are your starting defensive tackles? Kinlaw and Givens?
Yeah, I guess that would be who it is, huh?
I mean, I like Givens, but you don't have any backup defensive tackles. I think Armstead's probably going to stick there unless they draft some guys.
Yeah, I think
Hassan Ridgeway. You're forgetting about Hassan Ridgeway.
Yeah, he's a good guy to replace Contavious Street. I think he's going to be replacing Contavious Street in the rotation.
He'll be a much better run defender than Contavious Street.
Yeah.
And again, every single player that Chris Kasarik handpicks and brings to this team is good. So I'm going to expect Probably a Pro Bowl season from Hassan Ridgeway, just because that's what I'm going to make sure not to predict anything bad about Hassan Ridgeway because I'll be wrong. Watch that guy be so good this year. Anyway, biggest area of positivity on defense for me is I think they addressed their third down problems. They were 21st on third down last year, which should not happen. This was the third ranked defense in the league. This is a defense with, like an 8 deep pass rush. One of the best pass rushes in the league. It shuts down the run. It's setting you up for third and long. I mean, really, and they really couldn't get off the field on third and long. At Tennessee, Rams game, I mean, it was embarrassing. And it's like, what do you expect when you line up your corners 9 yards off the ball, no matter what the situation is, and tell them your number one goal is to not get beaten deep for a touchdown or give up and don't commit a penalty. So they're just going to give up first downs over and over and over again. Like they couldn't stop a simple comeback route on 3rd and 12. It was maddening. I don't even root for the team, but their ability to not be able to get off the field on 3rd and long was crazy for a defense that good with that pass rush. So just bringing in Charvarius Ward, someone that theoretically is going to be allowed to play. I mean, he did a good job against A.J. Brown last year, right? So the Niners couldn't stop A.J. Brown last year. So that's good. They should be as good on third down as they're supposed to be with that pass rush and run defense.
It should allow them to play tighter coverage, and that will be a benefit again. And again, that could help them if they end up sticking with Talanoa Hufanga as a safety. If they're playing more cover 3 looks and things like that, where he doesn't need to be deep. That's what he's best at, right? Is playing up along the line of scrimmage within up tight like that. So that can help out.
That's again why I don't see this, because Jimmy Ward is your eraser on tight ends. He's your best man-to-man coverage guy. He does a great job on tight ends. Tart played center field on third downs. You really want a Hufanga in center field? I don't. They got to get someone else. Maybe it's going to be George Oden center field. He's fast.
It could be. It could be a situation where they're rotating him. Like I said, they did okay when Hufanga started the 3 games that he started in was it Chicago? Arizona was a loss, and then he started the Rams game on Monday night.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though. In sub packages, didn't they have him a lot as kind of like a dime backer with Tart on the field? Yeah, they kind of move him down to linebacker on third downs. Maybe they could do that.
They did. Yeah, there's a lot of things that's one of the things I think they like about him is they can move him around. He's okay as long as you keep him with like Jimmy Ward. You're all right. It's when he's back there playing with I don't even remember who the other guy was last year. When like in the Arizona game, they didn't have Ward and Tart, and that was a bigger problem than I think people realize. I think as long as you have one of those 2 guys, it helps him out.
He seems like a good dime back. I mean, Hufanga, in the sense that like you don't really want him playing linebacker on 1st and 2nd down because he's a little small, but you would love him covering running backs out of the backfield on 3rd down. He'd be pretty good at that. So, or blitzing, you know what I mean? As a kind of a wild card guy that you have to keep in. So anyway, that's my area. They should be better on 3rd down. Yeah, all right, let's get to Lance, the man who's played 2.5 games. What is the biggest area of concern for Trey Lance going into his first season as a full-time starter, theoretically?
My biggest area of concern with Lance is just his accuracy. He's pretty good with it, but when we're talking about accuracy, it's not even just completion percentage. It's more of where you're putting the ball. But even that's kind of a hard one because I'm really high on Lance. I don't know if there's a whole lot of areas that I have concerns with Lance, other than the fact that he just hasn't done it before. I think he's a guy that's going to grow into it. So if I had to point to one area, I would just say his consistent accuracy would be mine.
Yeah, that's fine. His accuracy, his mechanics. That's definitely way up there. Another one I'm going to add to it is touch. Like a lot of this I thought was him sort of being nervous or young or trying to prove himself and not playing the whole game. And once he got like a full game, he kind of calmed down, but he throws too hard. A lot of the time on the short stuff, it's like, yeah, he dropped the ball, but that was a very difficult throw. And I remember Phil Simms talked a lot about Bill Walsh. He got getting worked out by Bill Walsh in 1979 or whatever it is, and how Bill was just like, whoa, dude, you throw way too hard. Softer. They need to catch the ball. And I'd like to see if he can do that, because if everything is 100 miles an hour, and I mean, they can win with him, but he probably isn't going to be a guy who ends up being, in the Steve Young, Joe Montana category. He'll be more in the Colin Kaepernick category. And Kaepernick won a lot of games. But I wanted to say, I was talking to my dad. He mentioned that I didn't know this, when Steve Young came to the 49ers, he really struggled throwing spirals. And he had to learn and work on throwing spirals, which is a lot like Lance. Now, I watched Young. Young never didn't really have a cannon. He had touch. He was accurate. I guess he had to work on throwing spirals. Lance has a freaking cannon. And if he could just rein it in a little bit, then, I mean, he should be pretty good.
Yeah, no, having the big arm is good, but 100%, you need to have some touch on the ball. Joe Montana didn't have the strongest arm, but he was able to get it everywhere on the field they needed to get it to. But it's that touch.
Stafford has touch too. Stafford has the big arm and touch. Mahomes has the big arm and touch. Herbert has the big arm and touch.
Yeah, that's one of the, you go back to NFC Championship game, that one of the deep outs on third down that Stafford hit. I mean, that was a beautiful touch ball because the ball's coming out so early because he's not trying to drive it through the wide receiver. So absolutely, touch is definitely an issue that hopefully Lance, that kind of goes along with the accuracy thing. It's the throwing motion process. So I agree with you.
Because I look at Lance as being like, I think I've said it before, he's the most physically gifted quarterback I've ever seen. Like he has, if you were to put up like all the different physical attributes for a quarterback and give him like a grade as a scout 1 to 10, I think he's high on more than any. I mean, just the combination of the mobility and the arm strength and the size, and the work ethic and the love of football. Apparently, all of it seems unique. But what about like the throwing finesse stuff? What about touch? What about like your release quickness? What about throwing with a spiral? That's all part of physical characteristics too. It's all part of your skill set. So I'd like to see. I think the nice thing about this stuff is it can be learned.
It absolutely can be learned. It's like golfing, right? The golfers, it's all repetition in their swing, and they do all different types of swings, but they do it so often. It's the same thing with a quarterback. You've got to get your arm in the same general area all the time, regardless of where you are. If at one point your arm's at your ear, the next time it's down by your shoulder, the next time it's above your head, that makes it really hard to make an accurate throw because your launch point's different every time.
And one thing I noticed with him, and this is just my amateur scout opinion, watching him, he's the opposite of Kaepernick in the sense that mechanics mean everything to Trey. Like he's really hyper cognizant of mechanics. He goes to Tom House. He works with John Beck. He's constantly drilling it. And in the pocket, he's a little not so natural. Like I kind of compare it to a dancer counting steps. Like you don't really feel the rhythm, the beat, like you're doing what you learned in the class. And what I'd like, I mean, that's great. And the more he does it, the more natural it'll get, of course. But in the meantime, just when you get him out of the pocket, because all of a sudden he's not thinking anymore. He's being an athlete. He looks really good when he's on the move. And he doesn't have to throw on the run. He can stop. He can set up. But just when you get him out of the pocket, I think he'll be a little less mechanical.
Yeah, we saw that against we saw it against Houston, right? Moved him out to the right, takes a deep shot, or moves to the left, I think it was, whatever it was, deep shot down the middle of the field, long pass interference, moves out to the right and drills the ball to Samuel for a touchdown. So I agree with you. It doesn't those aren't even full rollouts, so just moving the pocket, moving the line.
Yeah, just moving the pocket. Like when he's in the pocket, sometimes he'll have misses. I'm like, how did you miss by that much? It's like he's just in his head a little bit about his mechanics, I think, and sometimes they're not totally ingrained. They're not totally ingrained, they're new to him, and sometimes he just doesn't have it. You'll see him warm up. He will miss the ball boy frequently.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, dude. Usually professional pitchers, quarterbacks, anyone who throws the ball in their 20s for a living for millions of dollars can nail that ball boy consistently, but Trey's a little different. So I guess that would be the biggest area of concern.
Yeah, he'll come out you're right. He'll miss one. You'll throw it over his head the next time he hits him right in the chest.
Right.
But
right. Mm-hmm. But again, like he's not the kind of guy who's just out there running wind sprints saying, "I'll do it my way." Like he really means everything to him, and I think he'll get it. He still is only 21 years old. All right. Yep. Biggest area of positivity for Trey Lance going into 2022.
I think that it's the positivity with Lance is his athleticism to be able to use his legs to make some additional plays. That's one. Scratch that. The biggest area of improvement, the biggest area of positivity for Lance is that he's going to take his willingness to make the throws down the field.
I like that.
Whether it's a completion or a pass interference, he'll take the shots down the field. They're not doing that currently.
Yeah, that's the right answer. It's the fact that he's going to expand the field from a tennis court to a football field. That's going to have a domino effect on the whole offense, right? It's going to give the underneath receivers more space to get open. It's going to give the running backs more space to run. It's going to back off the safety. Theoretically, it's going to make everyone's job easier theoretically.
Yeah, it'll put more pressure on the defense. We saw it.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
Defend the whole field. Not just this little bit.
You're gonna have to worry about that deep third and deep half and everything now with Lance.
I think another area of positivity. People think it's a lot of pressure on him to step into this team and replace Jimmy Garoppolo. That's one way to look at it because Jimmy's had so much success. But another way to look at it is like Jimmy has a very modest skill set physically, and the Niners have had a lot of success with him. I mean, he doesn't want to do play action. He doesn't want to throw deep. He doesn't move. He doesn't read the field that well. And all he does is win. I mean, he wins like 2/3 of his starts. And yeah, the Niners have had trouble with other quarterbacks besides him, but like they're not exactly Trey Lance. I mean, it's like Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, Brian Hoyer, not the most physically gifted quarterbacks. If the Niners can have that much success with Jimmy, I mean, Trey, if he's not a total mirage with all those physical gifts and Trent Williams, Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, I mean, on and on and on. Kyle Shanahan, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. If Jimmy can do it, I think Trey should be pretty good as well. Unless he's like Deshaun Kaiser or something, and I just don't see it. But from what I saw in Houston in preseason and training camp, he's not Deshaun Kaiser. He's good, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I feel like he should be able to go out and do the offense should not take a step back with Trey Lance at quarterback.
If the offense takes a step back, it shouldn't be because of the quarterback position. I'm going to put it that way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So,
well, and the other thing neither one of us talked about is I do think that there is some leadership stuff there with Trey Lance too. You know, even though he's had Jimmy Garoppolo around, he's never said a bad thing about him. He's never he's never led on like it's been an issue. And that speaks a lot to his character and probably the way that he's looked at it in the locker room as well.
And, he's gotten a up close look at someone everyone says is a top-notch leader, right? He sees how Jimmy Garoppolo comports himself, why everyone respects him, why he has such a large contingent of the locker room in his corner. He sees that. And I would imagine, I mean, I'll be in there. We'll see. I doubt he's competing with Jimmy at this point. He's hanging back, taking notes, working on his craft. And this year he'll probably incorporate a lot. I would imagine he'll probably incorporate a lot of Jimmy Garoppolo's leadership style into his own.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it would make sense for him to do that. If he's smart, he's a smart guy. It would make sense for him to do some of those things.
And he's talked that way too. Like he's one of my best. He's a friend for life. Really appreciate how he does business. Sorry, my screen keeps bouncing. The Niners are the Kardashians of the NFL. The Shanians. Kardashians in the NFL? No, because Brick by Brick is a boring television show, and they should put their stuff on E. If we could watch Training Camp on HBO, if they would do Hard Knocks, then yes. But until then, they're still acting like they don't want attention. Leave us alone. We don't want the drama. Then stop having a quarterback competition.
That's right. The 49ers are more
drama and have a quarterback competition.
The 49ers are more of a Discovery Channel show.
Why?
Well, because that does the Discovery Channel. That's where you have all like the building the houses and everything like that.
That's true. We're gonna try to make it work with two quarterbacks.
The fixer upper. Here we go.
Get it done. Well, we don't really have the budget for it, but let's just slash the offensive line. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's move on. Andrew says, so what are your predictions for the Niners regular season record? Oh, don't make me do that. Don't make me do that. I was feeling really negative this week, and I don't want to go there yet because maybe I'll feel positive next week. But hey, when does the schedule come out for real?
It should be coming out in April here. Usually it comes out before the draft. Usually, I think last year it came out right before the draft. I think.
Okay, I'll make my official prediction that day when I see the sequence of the games because all I know is, look, the NFC is terrible, and the Niners theoretically are one of the 4 or 5 best teams in the 3 or 4 best teams in the NFC, but they're probably not going to win their division next year. They're probably going to be one of the 3 wildcard teams. Weird things can happen. Their schedule is freaking brutal. And a lot of years, like teams emerge that are good that you can't tell in April. So maybe there's a few teams in the NFC that we don't realize are going to be really good. Like, I don't even know. Like someone in the NFC East or the NFC North or something. I don't even know. But all I know is the Niners schedule is freaking brutal.
Yeah, the good part about their schedules, they're pretty much on the western half of the United States for most of the year. But yeah, even those AFC West games are going to be tough.
I think you can go to the Niners schedule right now and look at and find 7 wins, probably. Like 7 games that they should for sure win. Uh-huh. After that, they could win them, they could lose them. There's some tough freaking games on their schedule.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough schedule in terms of the opponents that they're facing.
Yeah. But again, players get hurt, teams get hurt. Like what the Raiders will look like when the Niners face them is probably gonna be a lot different than what they look like on paper right now. I mean, that happens every year, right? So let's just see who's not on the injury report that week. It's kind of what football is. Let's see who's on the injury report that week before we.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I'll say that they're going to be 5-12.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like what you just said right there, that makes sense. So because if the Niners had hadn't played the Cardinals twice in the first half of the season, they might have beat them once last year because they were so bad.
Exactly.
The second half of the year. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Although they did get to face Colt McCoy at home. But I'm just saying, Keneal says Hard Knocks for this year would be lit, man. I wish. I know, but I think if the Niners had, do you think our views would go up or down if they were on Hard Knocks? On the one hand, the Niners would be capitalizing on all their drama. On the other hand, they'd be bringing in new Niner fans that might want to watch us. I don't know.
I think it's better that they're not, because the only way that they get to see anything is through
us. All right, let's do the Hall of Fame conversation. Vish started it. God love him.
Poor guy.
I don't think he realized he was going to face this much vitriol. I don't know if I would be ready for that at 22 years old. At 34, I thrive on it. I thrived on it all throughout February with the George Kittle thing. I don't know if Vish is just, he's not a professional, man. You guys should let up on Vish. He's just a kid. He doesn't do this for a living, and he just expressed his opinion. Like, stop with the personal. Anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't agree with Vish's opinion, but at the same time, I'm not going to.
I respect him for having it and expressing it. Like, why are we all mad? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, in honor of Vish, let's do the discussion. Should Frank Gore be a Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I believe he is. I understand going back to the argument that was given yesterday was that, he's never been a first team all pro and those kind of things. But I think when you look at Frank Gore, 16,000 yards, the numbers that he put up with the 49ers throughout the middle portion of that, I think he's the third guy all time. I don't know how he doesn't get in. Now, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Maybe not, but I think he's going to get in, in the first couple of years that he can. I don't know if it's year 1, but by year 2 or 3, most likely.
It's just like an amazing quirk that Roger Craig was never, that Frank Gore was never an all-pro. How did that happen? Well, I guess I never considered him a top 2 running back in the NFL, although I considered him a top 5 running back in the NFL for a very long time. And I don't know, I guess the problem with this discussion is like, there's no definition of what a Hall of Famer is. I think the closest they've come is to say, like, can you tell the story of football without mentioning this person? And I guess you could with Frank Gore because he never won a Super Bowl and he played out here on a team that wasn't that great for a long time. But I don't know. I feel like that's a really stupid definition, and the NFL is way too restrictive on who gets in. Like the whole 5 players a year? Like, why? That's so arbitrary. I mean, in baseball, you could theoretically put 30 players in a year. It's just whoever gets more than X% of the vote.
Right.
If 20 people get more than 75% of the vote, why would you not put them in? Like, why do you want less people in your Hall of Fame? Why are you honoring less players? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, should Frank Gore be in the Hall of Fame? To me, yeah. But what makes the discussion hard is like, you compare him to other people. Like, there's all these like hypocritical things. Like how could you not have him in but have John Riggins in the NFL in the Hall of Fame? Like, how could you not have Frank Gore in but have, because John Riggins wasn't an all-pro. He was just on some famous teams, and he was great in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he had the one big run in the Super Bowl against the Dolphins in a strike year that's
it.
Yeah.
So he's in the Hall of Fame because you can't tell the story of the NFL without that run in that game. But Frank Gore, like, okay, so he's a victim of the teams he was on, like, or like the running backs of his era, like not being as good as LaDainian Tomlinson, or I don't know.
I think that's the argument against it. I mean, that they're or against him is just the fact that he was never. I think he only led the league. I think there might have only been one time when he actually led the league in rushing. If he even
Gore?
did it
I
then,
don't think he ever led the league in anything. I don't think he
there
led the league.
was
Maybe he did in 96. I mean, 06 and 96.
in '06. I don't know. I don't know who was above him. I mean, he was the second. He was the second team All Pro that year. Um,
I think
you know,
LaDainian Tomlinson had like 1,800 yards. LaDainian Tomlinson was so freaking good when
yeah.
I was in college. Damn. Yes. Sorry.
So but no, his consistency, and I think it was pointed to me yesterday when you go back and you look at his yards from scrimmage though from '06 to 17, he's over 1,200 yards every year in total yards from scrimmage. That's including his rushing and his receiving yards. So I think there's enough there to put him in, and he should make it.
I don't mean to speak for Vish on this one. I think his point, and it wasn't just Vish. Eric Crocker agreed with him too. I think Jesse Naylor. I think what their point is that, like, from their vision of it, like, a Hall of Famer should be a player who was like a tier 1 guy for at least 5 years or more, 5 or 7 years. I think that's what they're saying. And in their opinion, Frank Gore never was a tier 1 running back. Okay, I guess I would have a different definition. But I think you could probably find a lot of tier 2 players who are in the NFL or in the Hall of Fame because of a lot of reasons.
I mean, you mentioned one. John Riggins is definitely not
Yeah.
a tier 1. Was never a tier 1 running back. He was always kind of a tier 2 guy. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's important to look at like positions independent of other ones. So like at running back, I think longevity matters a lot. It's running back. Like most of those guys last 3 years and they're done. Look at Saquon Barkley. Look at Christian McCaffrey. The fact that Frank Gore lasted that long and was a tier 2 guy that long is really impressive. He was a tier 2 guy for 10 years at least. Who else can say that? A lot of guys were like Terrell Davis is in the Hall of Fame, right?
Uh-huh.
He was a tier 1 guy for 3 or 4 years. He was the best player in the league. That's it though.
Yeah.
And then he was done. He got hurt and it was over. Bo Jackson was arguably the best running back in the league for a couple of years. Then he got hurt. It was over. So what's more important? The ability to play football and for a long time, or the ability to be the best for a little bit? I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think it's the fact that Gore was able to play for a long time. Plus, he was able to play at a high level for a long time. He might not have always been the best, but he was always, until the last couple of years of his career, he was a very good running back. I mean, shoot, even when he was in Indianapolis after he left Fernandez, he almost got over 1,000 yards all 3 years there. He did it once, and the 2 years he didn't, he was right there. So he very impressive.
And the thing about it's an interesting debate, but at the same time, there's no question Frank Gore is going to be a Hall of Famer. He's the 3rd leading rusher of all time. And every other guy from 16 up is in the Hall of Fame except for Adrian Peterson, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. So it's pretty clear how the voters vote on the running backs. It's like rushing yards, you're in. And the only exceptions they make are as if you're John Riggins or something, or like Super Bowl winners, right? O.J. Simpson, John Riggins. O.J. Simpson was up there. But also Terrell Davis, guys, Gale Sayers, guys who were great and had their careers cut short.
Yeah, Gale Sayers was amazing.
Yes,
back in his day. Never saw him play, but just what I've heard of him.
Right. So Frank Gore will make it in. I don't know if he'll be first ballot. You think he'll be first ballot?
No, I don't think he'll make it in the first, but I think he'll make it in after maybe a year 2 or 3.
Okay. This one's interesting. Should Roger Craig be in the Hall of Fame? Roger Craig is not in the Hall of Fame. Roger Craig will not be in the Hall of Fame. He's never going to make it. But Roger Craig was an All-Pro. Roger Craig was a Pro Bowler at 2 different positions. He was originally a fullback. And he was the first guy ever to go 1,000 yards, 1,000 receiving and rushing on the same season. He's got quite the resume. Do you think he should be a Hall of Famer?
No, I don't think he should. I don't think what he did qualifies for it. When you look at his numbers, yeah, the 1,000, that was fantastic what he did in 85. But beyond that, his numbers aren't very good, right? He only broke 1,000 yards 3 times in 11 years. The only time that he went over that he got more than 1,100 yards was 1988. And that's as far as his rushing. He did go over 2,000 yards total from scrimmage twice. He did that in 88, and then he also the 85 year, which was the 1,000. So I just don't feel like he's a Hall of Famer because he didn't I mean, you look at him as a running back. He was okay. He was a decent running back, but he wasn't a big yard guy.
Yeah, I mean, I look at him. I see a guy who had more than 1,300 yards from scrimmage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in a row. That's pretty good. I mean, I'm more in the like, let everyone in the Hall of Fame. Like, why are we keeping Roger Craig out of the freaking Hall of Fame? Like, he was one of the best players in one of the top dynasties of all time. Like, there's got to be a spot for him. It's like, can't they like make a new wing or add a story? Are they running out of space? What is the problem? Do you understand how many quarterbacks are going to have to put in that thing in the next few years?
Well, the thing with Roger Craig is you get brought up as the 1,000 thing, right? Because he was the first to do it. But he's in the Hall of Fame for that. That's already in the Hall of Fame, right? His 1,000 stuff is in the Hall of Fame because of that. But you compare him to the other guy that did it, Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk, they don't compare. Marshall Faulk was over 2,000 yards total, 4 years in a row. He did it once his last year in Indy, and then he did his first 3 years in St. Louis. He was a consistent 1,000-yard rusher early in his career, other than one season in Indy. He was a guy who did it repeatedly. If you compare the numbers between Craig and Faulk, for example, there's only 1 year difference between the two, and Faulk just blows them completely out of the water. They're not even close.
Okay. But like, when you let Terrell Davis in the Hall of Fame, like that just opens up a whole can of worms. Like Terrell Davis had 3 years that were good, and he was all pro, all three, and he was the MVP of the league, and he was Offensive Player of the Year twice, and he was a Super Bowl MVP. But I mean, Roger Craig, he was Offensive Player of the Year. He was number 3 in the MVP voting 1 year. I mean, was he not a Super Bowl MVP in '84? I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns in that game. I wasn't alive. Maybe it wasn't him.
No, I think it was Montana.
It was
but
Montana.
He did.
Okay.
He get 3. He had the 3 touchdowns. He was the first. I think he was the first player to score 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl.
I mean, if you're going to make a special exemption for Terrell Davis because his knee exploded, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the more the merrier to me. But that's just me.
No, I'm hearing you. I hear you. And it's funny because like the biggest issue with it, if you want to go ahead and tell me that I'm wrong, which is fine, is if your reasoning is the 1,000 and you believe that because he did that the first time he deserves to get in, that's kind of the same thing that people really like with O.J. Simpson and Terrell Davis and those guys, right? Because they were 1,000, they went over 2,000 yards in a season, right? So that's I think the biggest argument that you can make against what I'm saying, and saying that Craig deserves to be in it. So I see both sides of it.
Where does he factor in like yards from scrimmage leaders? Probably not that high, right? Probably not that high. Ray Rice is number 1. Hold on, let me see Craig. Hold on. Roger Craig, where are you? Nope, that's not how you spell Craig. 47.
47th?
So O.J. Simpson finished his career with 13,378 yards from scrimmage. Roger Craig was 13,100. Like he got his yards in his own way, and it was ahead of his time. I don't know. I feel like I would give it to him, man. But I guess when you just look at when you stack up his rushing yards to other running backs, it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen.
I think that's why he's not going to get in, right? That's why I don't think they're going to vote him in. Should he be in? I mean, if you want to put him in and whatever, if it's going to make you angry about it, then put him in. But
they put everyone in the Hall of Fame in the NBA. It's not the NBA, it's basketball. And it's like, if you were good in college, you're in. If you were slightly famous, you're in. Carmelo's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. But in the NFL, it's like, I don't understand, man. They're stingy about it. Stingy. Like Patrick Willis, is he not in the Hall? Did he?
He's not.
Is he in the Hall of Fame yet? He's not in the freaking Hall. How is Patrick Willis not in the Hall of Fame yet? How? Hold on. Can we just take a minute to talk about how absurd that is? Hold on. Patrick Willis was All-Pro 4 years in a row.
Yeah. And
then another time, he was All-Pro 5 times. He was unquestionably one of the 2 best linebackers in the league for half a decade. And they're going to be like, you got to wait a couple of years because you didn't play until you were 33. Really?
Yeah, because he retired in 14, right? After 14?
It was like Okay, so he was 20, he was 30 when he retired. Like, so what?
No,
Is
I'm
there
not worried
room
about
for
that. But he retired, and he retired after the 2014 season, right?
Yes.
Okay, so 19 was his first year. So yeah, we're now going. This will be his third year on the ballot.
I mean, I'm sure he's gonna get in, but like the fact that they made him wait is kind of silly. And then even in retro, like I used to argue that Terrell Owens was like shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because he's like, bad in the locker room. Like, dude, he's like, was he second all time in receiving yards? At a certain point, your stats have to matter, right?
Yeah,
The fact that he didn't like, he was, I had to wait a couple of times, like a couple of years, like kind of silly, if you think about it.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. So Roger Craig,
No.
I tried.
I guess we need to get Matty Mayoko to help him out a little bit more. He needs to
It's all down to Matty.
Yeah, it's all his fault, right? If he gets in or not, right? I'm joking, but
Every
he's the
year
one
that Patrick
that
Willis doesn't get in the Hall of Fame, everyone should send Matty like an angry tweet, like that's come on, Matty. You had one job, Matty.
That's right. That's pretty cool. I did hear the story about his name being Matty Alou and all that kind of stuff. My dad was a huge Matty Alou fan.
His name. I heard that
name a lot growing up.
Matthew. So that's cool. The Mayokos are huge Giants fans. So named after Matty Alou.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for watching the show. That was a good one, Jack. Thanks for coming on, carrying it as usual. I appreciate it, man. Everyone, follow Jack on YouTube and Twitter. I'm sure you already do, though. You got anything coming up later on today?
Yeah, Sunil and I'll be on tonight at around 5:15. That's usually.
You know what I like about Sunil? He's so real. So real.
so real.
So real. Uh-huh. Tell him I say what's up. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll be back. What's tomorrow? Wednesday?
Yep.
I think we're doing a special Wednesdays with Vish and then Larry Krueger and then Jesse. So big day tomorrow. I'll see you guys then.
Big day.
Watch Jack tonight.